Talia, domestic human. December 3rd, Earth year 2103. Sprinting away from animal control for as long as my tired legs would allow, I continued in the direction indicated by my benefactor's device. My left wrist throbbed with intense pain, only dampened by the cocktail of adrenaline and sheer willpower coursing through my veins. I had awoken less than an hour before, and already I felt like collapsing once again. My whole body trembled with exertion as I turned yet another corner, praying to gods I didn't believe in that nobody was waiting for me up ahead. With one wrist dislocated, I had to make an agonizing decision to pocket the gun so that I could access my allies' directions at the cost of going unarmed. Sweat, dripping down my brow, threatened to blind me, as for a moment I collapsed against the comfortingly cold metal body of a dumpster, momentarily setting down the device to nurse my injured hand. Suddenly, the screen displaying my destination lit up with a message. "Don't stop now," it demanded. "You're just 3 blocks away. I won't be able to disrupt the satellite system for much longer." Searching within myself for just a few more droplets of strength, I struggled to my feet and all but limped the final few blocks. Out in the open streets, Xeno-citizens were going about their lives, blissfully free of the pain and fear that dominated my mind. The warehouse marked as my destination looked on the outside like it hadn't been used in years. Its corrugated walls, streaked with rust, presented a mosaic of decay and abandonment. Once vibrant paint peeled away in long, curling strips that partially obscured the alien glyphs marking its loading bay. Weeds pushed through cracks in the surrounding pavement in quiet defiance of the industrial relic. To me, however, it may as well have been a palace made of gold. Hope renewed a sliver of my strength as I dashed forth and wrapped the fingers of my still functional hand around the rusty back door's handle, beaming with joy as it gave way with a light yank. Stepping into the warehouse's almost pitch darkness, I sighed with pleasure as the cold air inside kissed my sweat-slicked skin, distracting me for a few blissful moments from the last day's nightmarish occurrences. With the door closed behind me, I saw a thin strip of bluish light reaching out to me from a cracked door. Hesitance tempered my every step as I crept toward the light and peered into the sizable room illuminated by it. Judging by its dust-caked desks and long out-of-date computers, this was a reception area of some sort. A television screen hooked up to the wall fizzled with silent static as it overlooked a low-set coffee table bearing 5 vials of a silvery liquid. "Congratulations, Talia!" The television beamed, startling me as I dropped my device and fumbled desperately for Prosure's gun. "There's no need for that." It continued as the static cleared to reveal a geometric pattern that moved as it spoke. "I'm the one who's been guiding you this whole time." Picking up the device I'd dropped onto the ground, I took a moment to confirm this. "Are you talking to me through TV right now?" In response, a single word popped up on screen. "Yes." Relief flooded my mind as I took a moment to recollect myself before looking up at the television and speaking up. "Why aren't you here in person?" I asked, refusing to let my guard down just yet. "That is complicated," replied the television, its response not exactly as comforting as I had hoped. "For now, we need to get your tracker disabled." "And how exactly are we going to do that? I don't see doctors or surgery bays around here." Behind me, one of the old computer screens lit up with a notification, partially illuminating an old filing cabinet. "The key to the cabinet is under that computer's keyboard. Use it to unlock the second cabinet drawer from the top," instructed my benefactor, remaining deliberately enigmatic. With no choice but to obey, I carefully crept over to the computer and lifted its keyboard to reveal a simple, unassuming key. Then, with only slight hesitation, I slotted it into the second cabinet from the top and opened it up to look inside. "Is this—" I picked up the strange chrome device shaped almost like a staple gun. It reminded me of something my vet would use. "Is this an auto syringe?" "Correct," replied the television as the geometric icon was replaced by a simple diagram on how to insert a vial into this device. "Now, you see those vials on the coffee table? Grab one and load it into the syringe, then inject it into your neck." "In my neck?" I repeated incredulously, eyeing the screen with newfound suspicion. Why would I do that? It is the most efficient path to your subcutaneous implant. You have approximately 30 minutes until the satellite link is restored, and this location is compromised. Continued my benefactor, their tone a curious mix of casual and robotic. Picking up the auto syringe with my good hand, I cautiously approached the table and set it down there before picking up one of the vials and surveying it. "I'm sorry, but I can't inject this stuff unless you tell me what it is." For the first time since I'd come into contact with my benefactor, they actually took a moment to respond. "The vial you are holding contains a population of programmable medical nanites. Once you inject them, they will rapidly bypass the blood-brain barrier, and I will be able to use them to disable your tracker." Eyeing the small glass vessel of silvery liquid, I felt a lump forming in my throat. Horrific as the procedure Prosure would force me to undergo was, at least I knew what its result would be. This vial, however, presented an unknown quantity. My escape up to this point had been painful and terrifying, but at least then I wielded some sliver of self-determination. Even if these really were nanites, what they would do to me was entirely up to the one controlling them. Now, once again, I was placing my fate in the hands of another. Is this how I die? I wondered, awkwardly loading the auto syringe and holding it to the side of my neck. If this was a sedative, I'd be at the mercy of my benefactor. If it was poison, I'd be dead in minutes. My finger quivered as I began to tighten it around the trigger, fighting my self-preservation instincts for every millimeter of movement. I didn't feel the needle go in. There was a puff of air, and after a few seconds of nothing else, I took the syringe off of my neck and felt a droplet of blood trickling down from where I had held it. "There," I sighed, slapping the instrument down onto the coffee table before looking back up at the television screen. "I injected it. What now?" "Take a seat and try to relax," answered the television in a command I was more than happy to follow, collapsing onto a nearby chair with a sigh of mild relief. "We are still waiting on someone." Hearing this, I felt a lump of anxiety forming in my throat, momentarily rendering me as speechless as Prosure's implant had. "Who else is coming?" I asked, trying and failing to conceal my mounting concern. "You are not the only runaway I sought to enlist," replied my enigmatic ally, pulling up a series of images on the television screen depicting my face alongside those of 4 other humans, each one accompanied by basic information regarding them. Each vial on that table was intended for one of these runaways. Following this explanation, 3 of the profiles faded away, leaving behind only mine and 1 other. Unfortunately, 3 of my selections have already been recaptured. That leaves just you and Enzo, who is currently 2 blocks away from our position. The profile beside my own was of a young man roughly my own age. Judging by the sterile white background that matched mine, his picture had also come from a veterinary clinic. Behind locks of wavy blonde hair, Enzo's eyes like pools of chocolate pierced through the screen as though he was staring right at me. Shaking off the bizarre sensation crawling up my spine, I held my damaged wrist in my hand and momentarily attempted to correct it, stopping almost immediately as agonizing pain lanced up my arm in reply. "Do not attempt that," the screen crackled. "You will not be able to reset your wrist without assistance from another sapient. Once Enzo arrives, he will assist you in correcting the injury." "You never told me your name," I interrupted, looking upon the geometric pattern with something between curiosity and suspicion. Now would be a good time. "My name is difficult for most sapients to pronounce," continued my benefactor, their geometric avatar shifting and pulsating as though lost in thought. "You may call me Dovetail." Given the secretive nature of my benefactor up to this point, a nickname seemed like the closest thing to an actual answer I was going to get, so I decided not to push the issue. Reaching into my froggy face backpack, I retrieved my water bottle and a handful of jerky, eating just enough so that my stomach would stop growling at me. In the next room over, I heard the same rusty door I had come in through opening once more. "Hello?" a voice called out in English, the sound of their footsteps echoing across the floor towards me. "In here," I practically whispered, just barely loud enough for the fellow runaway to hear. For a moment, the footsteps ceased, then they sped up. Watching as Enzo walked in, I felt a sudden surge of self-consciousness wash over me. I didn't get to interact with other humans often, and peering into the dark television screen at my reflection, the girl staring back at me seemed like she'd make a poor first impression. Her hair mussed by recent sleep combined with clothes that assuredly smelled of sweat created an aesthetic less of badass rebel and more scraggly goblin. "Welcome, Enzo," chimed Dovetail, their robotic tone tinted with satisfaction. Though not as pristine as he appeared on his profile, Enzo's escape had clearly gone much smoother than mine, judging by his relatively clean clothes and lack of visible injuries. "Congratulations on making it here! You are one of two to have successfully reached this place." I see that," Enzo panted, regarding me with a bizarre mixture of pity and suspicion. "What's your name?" he asked, keeping an arm's length away from me as he circled the coffee table and took a seat on its other side. Raising the water bottle to my lips and taking a long swig, I noticed a flicker of longing appear in the other stray's eyes. The vessel I'd been drinking from only had a few gulps left, and I had planned to savor them. Empathy, however, prevailed as I held out the bottle to Enzo. "My name's Talia," I smiled, trying not to let him see how much it hurt me to give up the rest of my supply. "Looks like we're the only two who made it." "Enzo, on the table in front of you are 4 vials of nanites. Please use the auto syringe to inject one of said vials," commanded Dovetail, just as the other stray finished draining what was left of our water. For a moment, he seemed hesitant, but a reminder from our benefactor of the tracking device broadcasting our location was sufficient motivation. Loading the nanite vial with clinical precision, Enzo held it to his neck and without further delay pressed down on the trigger, eliciting another puff of air from the syringe as it pumped the liquid into him. With that done, the human turned his gaze toward me. "Holy shit, your wrist!" he half gasped, reaching out for my arm only to stop short of grabbing it. "What happened?" "I might have tried to fire a Jacovian grade pistol one-handed," I sighed, deciding it best to simplify my explanation. "Dovetail says you can help me reset it." "Oh, that's easy," replied the stray, gently wrapping his hand around my limp wrist. "You'll want to bite down on something. This is gonna hurt like a bitch." Taking his advice, I placed one of the straps of my backpack between my teeth and clamped down hard onto it. "On the count of 3, okay, Talia? 1, 2. He didn't wait for 3, before yanking the bone back into its original position with a sickening crack accompanied by a roaring agony worse than what I'd felt incurring the injury. I wanted to cry out, to scream, to swear, but we couldn't risk anyone outside hearing it. Instead, I remained silent as the pain slowly but surely faded to a manageable level. "Excellent!" Dovetail chimed in, their voice partially muddled by the pain I was in. "Your nanites will take care of the rest." "So, your name is Dovetail?" Enzo asked, looking at our benefactor with a curious expression. "Not to sound ungrateful, but I have some questions regarding whatever the hell is happening here. For one thing, what's the plan? I'm guessing you want to try and sway the council. The vote for human independence was decently close. Maybe we can get them to reconvene on it?" "Unfortunately, I do not believe that is an option," answered Dovetail with an enigmatic lilt. "You see, the council's vote was not merely on whether they should deem humanity sapient. It was a vote to change the definition of sapience itself so that humans could be included under it." Oddly pedantic as it was, Dovetail's explanation gave no clear reason as to why a recount was out of the question. "Even still," I replied, picking up where Enzo left off, "the vote was close. If we can get them to recount, maybe things might go different." "The vote they showed the public was close," our benefactor replied, their geometric avatar on screen replaced by a pie chart representing the council's votes. 60 in favor, 79 opposed, and 3 abstaining. However, when I accessed the voting database with borrowed council privileges, the vote looked something like this. Immediately, the chart began to shift as the red opposed section seemed to swallow up the blue in favor one. 8 in favor, 7 abstaining, 127 opposed.